Hello, everyone. I see people are starting to trickle in, and let's see. Yeah, so howdy. Let me get the notes up, actually. For those of you who don't know where those are, I'll see if we can actually put that into the chat. And here we go. So, yeah, there we go. There's a little delay in the chat, so. And Joe's here too. Awesome. So yeah, I'll fill in the timestamps on this stuff later, but if people have news and stuff that they want to add, the HackMD document is open. I don't remember if we talked about it last week. I think I know one more thing. I thought I saw the Dapper release, or the Dapper project had a GA release. 10 days ago. I don't know if we announced it last week or not. Gosh, this text scrolls by really fast when you're all talking. That's great. Super exciting. Okay. So I don't know that I can. Oh, right. And we had a short week too, last week. So I'm not sharing my screen yet. Thank you for pointing that out. There we go. Now everyone can see the notes instead of me. So yeah, I don't know if we've got any core Kubernetes news, but there's a whole bunch of ecosystem news here that I'm happy to call out. Clustered is, it looks like it's a new channel for showing how awesomely you can break Kubernetes and stump the experts. So that sounds kind of fun. I know I have stumped myself at least once or twice with my own cluster. So I don't know who all is fixing it. Thanks, Dims. Next week. If you want to, Dims, if you want to either chime in with the exact day or put it in chat, I will copy it over. Contour has a release, it looks like. They keep turning things off. Did anyone else have a release this week? Matt Moore, do you know anyone who did a release? Matt's preparing for clustered. Okay. Yeah. Knative had a release as well. I'm teasing Matt because he was the one who did the release. And I'm going to embarrass myself, but I don't know what the URL for that is. So hopefully someone else will fill that in, or I'll fill it in afterwards. 2.2 release. I love it when I see other stuff in there filling things out. Thank you. Cilium released a network policy editor. I actually saw this and it looked pretty cool, so let me just show show you. They've got a little video demo. So you can go in here and you can take a look at. You can pivot things, it looks like, a little bit around your different workloads, and they show how, for example, you might forget to include a namespace selector, or you might accidentally have a network policy that doesn't allow you to speak to kubedns, and then you got a really bad day. Sounds like a clustered episode. It looks like it also provides you a little clarity as to how things actually work, and gives you some nice visualization. So if you're using Cilium, this looks like a neat tool, and their video's done. So YouTube has some ads for me. An intro to Flux. I'll take a look at this real quick. So yeah, Flux is, I don't use it, but I know a lot of people have looked at Flux as one of the ways to do sort of management and GitOps. Oh, thank you. It's crackly. Let me see what I can do in terms of audio settings here. Is that a little better? You may also be catching me switching into and out of the cone of the mic a little bit. But Flux is a GitOps tool, so that instead of doing the bad stuff you're going to see me do all the time, where I just pop open kubectl edit, and then stuff happens, and you don't remember what it was, you're using Git to drive that. And so this looks like a nice walkthrough of how to actually get stuff started with Flux. Crossplane is what we're going to be doing today. So yeah, Dapper had a release, and security groups for pods walkthrough. Let's see what this is. EKS security groups. Yeah, so I don't know if we're going to end up needing to do a lot of EKS security groups today, but whether we are or not, if you are on EKS, you have to worry about security groups as well as your Kubernetes network policy. It looks like this is a walkthrough on how to implement that network policy. And rate limiting. Oh, rate limiting. This sounds like an issue near and dear to my heart. I think Matt Moore can probably tell you some stories about when we introduced a little bit of stress testing on the leader election in the Knative controllers, and we managed to beat up the API server pretty badly by killing the leader every 30 seconds, so that it had to switch to a new one, and it would in-queue a whole new set of reconciliations. That would basically take the whole cluster out rather than just making Knative behave slowly. It looks like this is a nice explanation of how you can keep one controller from wiping out the whole cluster. Let's see, what else do we have here? Looks like that's most of the news. Here's the Harbor release. Are there any Harbor features? Yeah, the Chaos Duck was what Matt called it. And it's, I don't know if Matt wants to post some slides there, but that was a pretty cool feature. System level robot account. Any particular callouts for Harbor 2.2 that we should mention? Okay. Let's see. I'm going to fill the rest of that in later. So we're about 10 to 15 minutes in, and we're probably going to start diving into Crossplane. Upgrading Istio sounds like an interesting challenge. Okay, well, we're going to stick the notes over on the side here. And let's see, diving into Crossplane itself. So those of you who aren't familiar with Crossplane, you can all take a look, but it's basically a tool for managing your cloud resources from Kubernetes. So particularly if you're a multi-cloud or a cross-cloud company, you're probably familiar with all the different tools you've got. Setting up for this, I installed the AZ tool and the EKS control tool and the AWS tool. I made sure that all of those were up to date, and asking each developer to do that, particularly as you start to have several of these things to worry about. It's a mess, and it'd be nice if you could just say, here's one tool you need to learn. So Crossplane is attempting to make it easy to manage a bunch of different clouds. The fine folks at Upbound started the project, but I know that they've been working with AWS and it looks like lots of other clouds to be able to provision not just like Cappy lets you provision VMs so that you can have a cluster, but this actually lets you provision like databases. Like I want an RDS instance. I don't actually want to run an operator and upgrade it. I like paying Amazon to make the database their fault if it doesn't behave. I guess if it's too small, it's my fault that I didn't pay them enough money. But other than that, I can just say, hey, I want SQL. I'm willing to pay. It looks like it also is letting us build infrastructure abstractions. So we can build a stack of stuff, not just, give me an RDS database, but like, hey, I know that usually I want like a database and a cache layer and maybe something else. And then I'm not quite familiar enough with OAM to give you a good opinion here. It looks like there's a lot of stuff. There's a spec, define your apps, and then hopefully everyone can kind of share that app definition, and it's easier to set up like staging and production clusters. Purpose and goals. That's awesome. I love it when people actually spell out why we're doing this project in a place rather than just saying, look at all the stuff we do, because sometimes it's hard to figure out if there's a gap or something's missing. Yeah, I guess OpenShift is not necessarily on-prem, but I saw the OpenShift logo there. And that is not cloud. I mean, it's software. It gives you Kubernetes wherever you are, but it's not guaranteed to be cloud. So let's see. I love how everything is talking about applications, and I really wish we had a common definition for what an application was. One thing I would love to see actually is the ability to drive like a Jamstack application off of a consistent deployment mechanism that doesn't tie me to, like Netlify plus Kubernetes plus like whatever my API gateway is. Oh, a Rook provider. That sounds handy. I have a personal cluster where I've been running my own Rook, and I sort of like, I'm not good at this. Haven't lost any data yet, but I've been nervous several times. So let's see. Define the components, ways to group them, and some roles and responsibilities, but not how you process them or exactly what you've got. Cool. So you'll see me probably, let's see, overview's the same thing. See it in action. You know, see it in action here. It's nice to know there's a place I can go to do it, but it feels like it would be really nice to have either a video here or like a README or something like that. Fluent bit and container D. Yeah, I've got my own Fluent bit running as well. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay. I'm getting off the beaten path here a little bit. I see people talking a bit about training material and documentation. We've been struggling with that on the Kubernetes or on the Knative project as well. If anyone has a magic recipe for documentation, write that thing up and share it around. Document it, as it were. Let's see. Looks like you can run it on any Kubernetes cluster. So I said at the beginning in the chat that I may end up starting on Kind here rather than EKS because I forgot exactly how long it takes EKS to spin up a cluster. Let's see. Do we have... that wasn't even what I wanted. How did I... Yeah, okay, my Kubernetes cluster is still coming up. In the meantime, I somehow managed to accidentally also create a ECS cluster instead. That's not what I wanted, so let me turn that off before I get charged for it. Okay, so why would you want to manage applications with Play? Well, I mean, this is really what I want. I want declarative applications. Yeah, this all seems like, you know, motherhood and apple pie to me. So let's see. How do I kick the tires now that I've decided I want to do all this? That is back up at the top. Documentation. Install and configure. Awesome. It's great that I want to call out, because I think this is really nice here. I like the tabs layout, and I like that you've got both a self-hosted and a just get me going option. I'm going to do the self-hosted because I want to understand what's going on here. But it's really nice for people to be able to get into, like, if you're looking to do a developer experience type of thing, yet you need to have infrastructure to make that work. It's I work on something called serverless, and let me tell you, there's servers there. You need one. But the idea is the developers don't have to touch the servers. And so it's really nice to have a hosted option for that type of thing. Get a new Kubernetes cluster. Oh, I've already got Kind running. So I don't need that. Yeah. Great. Install Crossplane. Okay, let's see here. How's the font? I have been told I have good eyes, so if we need to change the size, just let me know. Hey, Carlos. Okay. Steve would like it bigger. Okay. I don't know how many of you have used Windows Terminal, but it's pretty cool. So watch this. It's got a JSON file, and I'm going to make my font size 12 for right now. I'm going to save. Oh, font's bigger. Let's make it 13. And so, yeah, if I want to change my background color, for example, I can just copy the old one and let's see, how about we make it green for right now. And then I save it and I say, ah, that looks terrible. I go back. So yeah, I use both Mac and Windows, but I like to get some empathy for folks who are running on Windows. I know that a lot of developers are, and so I will admit I do also have Ubuntu here if I need it. Ironically, the place where I discover that I need this the most is when I need to base 64 and decode secrets from Kubernetes. But it's nice. Yeah, most developers do, and Windows Terminal is really nice. Also, if you haven't used the Power Toys, that's got some nice stuff too. So let's see, Helm repo add. And I already did that. And I did update too because it's not entirely my first rodeo. And now let's install Crossplane. Hey, Julian. I may do that. I will admit that I tend not to do a lot of customization on my tools. Yeah. Because I end up tending to move from one machine to another more often than I would like. I used to do a whole ton of customization, but then trying to carry that around with me was really painful. And so I do it a lot less now. Okay, so we've installed stuff in Crossplane system. Let's see. Here. Yeah, still waiting for the node group to come up. Get all dish in Crossplane system. What have we got here? Okay, we've got a deployment. That looks like about it. Control get CRDs. Oh, this isn't too bad. It looks like we've got like 10 or 12 Crossplane components. Or 10 or 12 CRDs. So that's something I feel I can kind of wrap my head around in this session. I remember seeing Joe install Istio and there were 45 CRDs and it was a little overwhelming. So let's see. Yeah, we already got everything. Get the Crossplane CLI. Ha ha! I bet that's not going to work. Well, we'll try it. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see what this really does. So, funny thing, curl on Windows is not the curl binary. It's a PowerShell built in. But I have curl.exe installed. So let's see. It looks like we go through some stuff. And we're looking for something called crank.exe. And it's going to be Windows AMD 64. So channel. Where does channel come from? Stable. Current in Windows AMD 64 crank.exe. Okay. I've now downloaded a random binary from the internet, and I'm going to run it on my computer. Control mouse wheel. Oh, nice. I wonder what that does to the settings. I bet it's updating my settings JSON live. Oh, Helm includes the OAM, but I don't have the controllers. Great. Okay. So let's see. I got this thing. Oh, and then what do we do? Oh, then we echo, put it in the same place as your kube control. I'm sure I will never regret this later. Can't be found. Oh. Try using quotes. And I don't have permissions, so I'm going to have to do this off in the desktop. All my instructions tell me to kube control crossplane. So I will just get that installed. Let me... So yeah, I'm guessing that all the... Oh, is that the color? Is it because it's too small, or... Oh, yeah, okay, on that black background. So, let's see. I'm going to set the opacity 1.0. It looks... The acrylic thing looks pretty, but yeah, it can be distracting. Is that a little better? It's still kind of dark. Well, I promise you, if I have an important flag, I will do it. And yeah, I can do a black background too. There we go. Okay, let's see. TGIK needs to go in to here. Okay, there we go. And one UAC prompt later, here we go. I got started on SGI IRIX that had this nice blue purplish background, and I guess I've carried that preference along with me. Kube control crossplane install provider. Gosh. I kind of want to see what I've got before I do this. Oh. My EKS control just finished and changed my context. So it looks like actually now I've got an RBAC-manager as well. Was that there when I looked before? I was kind of speeding through and, oh yeah, there's an RBAC-manager. Okay. I'm presuming the RBAC-manager probably has extra permissions. Let's take a look. got the wrong context again. Let's see. What is this service account running as? RBAC-manager. To use context, not set context. Crossplane RBAC-manager. That's probably what I want. Has escalate. I mean, to some degree, when you say, hey, I'm going to let you manage stuff that can install new CRDs and things like that, you kind of need one of these can escalate things. I'm just kind of wondering how it's put together. Let's see. So it looks like it can do events and it can create namespace. Oh, it can read namespaces in service accounts, but not create them. And it can watch CRDs. I see a lot of get list and watch. It can create cluster roles and roles. And it can bind cluster roles and create cluster role bindings. Okay, so that's kind of nice. The only thing that the RBAC-manager, it looks like, can do is anything it wants with config maps. And why are config maps in here like this? I'm curious. And then manage RBAC, but it can't create anything else in the system like a deployment or so forth without creating an RBAC security trail. So that's kind of nice. Okay. And now we're back to, let's install the AWS. Oh, I downloaded something called Crank. Why is this? Okay. The config maps are apparently there for leader election. It seems weird not to have those limited down to a name. But if it's legacy, then hopefully it's going away soon. Where did I... Oh, that's just downloading. I wanted to see... Cube control crossplane isn't working. Crank. Looks like Crank does work. So I guess I'm just going to use Crank directly. I actually want to see how this stuff's put together a little bit. So I'm guessing I can just say crank install provider AWS. In which we learned that I type. Okay, I've created the provider. Provider.pkg. And then, does this create any new? It doesn't create any new pods, so it looks like this is all happening within Crossplane. Well, let's see what the provider looks like. Kind provider, a bunch of stuff, Crossplane Provider AWS. I'm guessing that name is taken from this package name up here. I'm kind of curious how that all gets packaged together. Like if I name this something else, presumably it doesn't make a difference. pull packages if not present. Looks like we have the package and it's got a revision. Oh, it looks like I did get a new pod and a new deployment for the AWS provider. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I've renamed it to kubectl Crossplane off on the side, so that should work. More CRDs incoming. Oh yeah, okay. So that installs a whole bunch more. Now, where did these come in from? Did these... I'm going to take a look at one of these. And I'm wondering whether the AWS provider put it in or if Crossplane installed it as part of the package. And we should be able to tell up here by the managed fields cube builder. Put some stuff in here, but Crossplane was the manager. Okay. Okay. So it looks like AWS has its own service account. That's kind of nice. And it looks like Crossplane installed all of those CRDs. So I already did this part that involves producing a file that has all my AWS access keys. So we are going to, here's my AWS creds. And now we can empty my bank account with Crossplane. So let's see, create a provider config object to configure credentials. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to provision some infrastructure. So let's see. Yeah, I know you can't find the path specified. That's the whole point. Oh, okay. Never mind. We're going to do this a civilized way with Emacs. Is the screen's looking blurry for you? Was it just the Emacs, or is it everything that's looking kind of blurry? Fine on Chrome. Oh, I'm gonna blame YouTube for that one. So let's see. Wait, this says, oh, this is, presumably this is actually a provider config that matches that thing they had up there. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't actually need to copy and paste that thing. I could have just run the kubectl apply. That will teach me to copy and paste everything. Okay, so now I have a provider config for AWS. Oh, are these cluster level resources? Looks like they are cluster level resources. So if I don't want someone using a provider, I need to use names or something to keep them from doing it. And so it's reading the creds out of the Crossplane system namespace, but the provider itself is global. I could use WSL, but I'm trying to teach myself PowerShell because it turns out that it's handy to know your tools. Cluster scopiness will make sense. Okay. Provision infrastructure, supporting an RDS instance. Yeah, I can see how cluster scoped is kind of attractive. I'm a little nervous about cluster scope just because it does make it a little harder for people to reason about, but like CRDs are cluster scoped, so hard to throw too much mud at that. Going to compose infrastructure. Does compose infrastructure expect that I have? It looks like it doesn't. Okay. Ooh. So now I'm wondering, how do I look at these things in the registry? It's great to be able to do like a quick install. Okay. But I'm hoping that I can also find getting started with AWS. Is there? Haha, here we oh. This is a Docker image. With no details about where it comes from. I just sort of want to understand this configuration and what it is before I stick it on my cluster. Is there an easy way for me to figure out? I'm guessing this is called XP. This doesn't say XP. Maybe that's not the same thing. Under package infra heading. Package infrastructure. Okay. Let's see. Create a composite resource definition. Create a composition. Build and push. Here we go. Okay, that's neat. It's actually storing the packages in an OCI registry. So this gives you kind of a trusted place to get and share these packages. One thing that I will do sometimes when I'm playing around, but when I start getting closer to touching a production thing, I get real nervous about is, like Helm, add this Helm repo, or, add this other thing, without knowing the scope. I don't know how many people recently saw a whole bunch of companies got owned, fortunately, by a demonstration that where someone published packages that had name collisions with internal packages, like trying to remember who some of the big names were there. I want to say like Lyft, for example. There was a public Lyft package name, and then you could just go to PyPy and create a package with the same name as the internal Lyft name, and then you could actually inject code into Lyft's build process, because they would prefer the version out of PyPy from the local one. And that's one thing I worry about when I go and add a registry, or I'm pulling from something and I don't sort of see a URL. I sort of see a DNS name here, but since it doesn't resolve to something that I recognize, I sort of wonder, okay, how do I know that I'm going to be pulling from the right place? So it looks like in here we're going to talk about how this works and how it gets packaged. And does this mean that over here this says registry.upbound.io/xp? Is this some sort of mapping to Docker Hub Crossplane? It looks like we're discovering that YouTube chat is eventually consistent at best. And yeah, it's really cool that people are starting to use Matt Moore's Go container registry libraries. He worked with a team at Google for the Google Container Registry, and there's a really nice library for interacting with the container registry and building images without actually needing to have Docker installed or actually run any build steps. You can just combine tar-gzip images and get a new image that way. They've got a pretty cool tool in there as well called Crane that lets you actually do that composition. Greedy charts. Yeah. So is this registry.upbound.io/xp basically a mapping to Docker Hub, or is it just another registry? Okay, that's your own registry. I'm going to assume that it is... Actually, I have no idea where I would go to find the original Docker image here, but I guess I could use something like Dive to dig into it if I wanted to. Do I have Dive installed? I do have Dive installed. Is this going to work? I bet it won't. Well, it's definitely not going to work if I call it kubectl first. Oh, cool. Okay, so it's a single file that's just a package.yaml. I could probably go and extract that out if I wanted to. So it's nice that I can go in and use standard tools like Dive to actually figure out what's in a package. Potentially use a browser or something like that to pick it out. Now let's see. I actually did install this configuration, so control get configuration. One other thing I'm noticing here in the CLI, and I really like this, I don't have to name everything. I bet there's probably a way to name these resources if I needed to. Certainly if I was doing it with YAML, I could, but it's nice to just be able to say, like, do the thing and you figure out the name. So nice touch on the CLI for that. And you've also filled in enough of the CRD information that list looks nice. So that's a nice added plus too. I've got a provider config named default. Get provider config. It's named default. Great. And now let's see if we can provision a PostgreSQL instance. So this says it needs, the provider config needs to be named default, but I don't. Is this the same? Well, it would look better if I didn't copy the kubectl part and make Google search for it. That looks like that's the same thing. Here we go. Compose claim, yes. So I don't actually see where default is being referenced in here other than the namespace. So I'm a little confused as to why I need to name it something particular, especially since it seems like the composition is matching a label instead. I wanted to look at my provider config one more time because I'm guessing ever since they added managed fields, it's impossible to actually read the YAML. I don't care about managed fields, Kubernetes. I understand they're important. Are there labels in here? Is it an API version? Wait, is provider config an AWS specific thing? Or are you using duck typing here? Okay. Default is just a name that defaults in. Awesome. Okay. Oh, good. Sounds like I need to get a bleeding edge kubectl to be happy with kubectl output again. Let's see. Yeah, I don't. Matt may be able to give more references to other tools. Dive is the first one I've found. I think I have a 120 Kubernetes. Is to answer the last question. Matt may be able to point some other nice container registry tools out there. Someone pointed me to Dive, and I found it a lot more useful than not having it. I think I've seen a web interface before for doing it too, and I don't remember where I saw that. But yeah, Matt Moore and Jason Hall actually are where I've learned everything about container registries from, and they've built a lot of cool tools. So if you're ever curious about diving into what's in a container registry, I definitely encourage you to talk to them, although Matt's taking a break from tech pretty soon, and we're going to miss you, Matt. Let's see. So here's the AWS claim. Oh, cool. Do you want to send me? Again, I fail at copying text and pasting it. Okay, so yeah, that's what we just created. So get PostgreSQL instance, and it's not ready yet, but I bet I can describe IDB, and it'll tell me why. Operation cannot be fulfilled. The object has been modified. But those are older and these are new. It's not ready yet. It's waiting for the composite resource to become ready. And that's this thing here. So I bet I can dig in now and figure out what this is. Okay, so this looks like, okay, this is a Postgres database that references an AWS database. I'm not sure what the example.org bit at the end is. And here's a resource ref on an RDS instance. So I can probably look at that next. And it's going to write a connection secret over here and selected composition. It's an RDS instance. Get RDS instance. It's not ready yet. It looks like it's backing itself up. Okay. So this is working on creating an RDS instance. And let's see if I pop open an AWS management console. And I go to services, RDS. Let's see what we've got going on here. Databases. Is this? Oh, this is US East 1. Okay. Well, I'm in Seattle, so it looks like maybe I should figure out how to tell AWS I'm in Seattle. So yeah, I just dug through several layers, and it looks like it's currently backing up and isn't quite ready yet. I went through that kind of quickly. If people want me to go through a little bit more slowly, let's see. So I did a describe on the resource I created here, a PostgreSQL instance. And then I looked at the spec, and the spec has this resource ref that tells me, oh, the resource is over here, and the connection secret's going to be written to this secret. And so I'm going to guess if I do a kubectl get secret that I don't have it yet because it's not ready, which is fine. It's told me that it's not ready, so and it tells me that it's waiting for this other resource to become ready. And then I dug into this composite PostgreSQL instance. Say that 5 times fast. And you can see here, if you saw last week's TGIK with Scott Nichols, this kind of feels like an example of duck typing, where the database, you've got an API version and a kind and a name, and that's enough to tell you a specific Kubernetes resource. And so you can plug in any kind of ref there that you want, and expand that out. And so now I can get the spec of that, and I think this is telling me it's claimed by my DB. So this is actually an uplink. I'm kind of surprised it's in spec. I would have probably put it in an owner reference. I don't see an owner reference on here. The nice thing about owner references is that Kubernetes will try to collect them. The slightly annoying thing is if you need to do cleanup work, then you have to tack a finalizer on there, and you have to live with the finalizer lifecycle. And so this is picking out this resource ref here, which is an actual RDS instance. And so we can go down there and pick it out. Oh, how many AWS resources are covered by Crossplane? I can show you that over here. If you click on Provider AWS in the docs, you can see it looks like they have 58 CRDs. So I'm going to guess that's about 58 things, but I see a whole bunch of them are, for example, a API Gateway v2. And I don't know if DB subnet group is a thing that I care about. But I'd probably say there's at least 20 or 25 real honest to goodness things you might want to provision here. Oh, and it sounds like there's even more coming. The other nice thing it looks like is there's documentation if there's one that you, if there's something you really need that isn't there. I know it's shocking that they wouldn't have full coverage of every single AWS service out there. For those of you who are going to use Kubernetes to manage your cloud HSM, don't do that. Please don't do that. You could write your own controller to do that, and I bet that they have a bunch of good examples. But anyway, let's see. This is still backing up. Wow, it takes a long time for this to get ready. And I just noticed one other interesting thing. So this is using a DB-T2 small. I never actually told what size I needed. Presumably, if I look at, I'm going to go back here, at the Crossplane. Nope. What did we create here? We created a PostgreSQL instance from example.org. I don't actually know where I'd find the documentation on how this thing works. Yeah, maybe I should have used a different provider that provisions faster. But it looks like there's documentation for how to set up your principles, which is nice. I'm doing things a bad way, and I'm actually using my personal access key, but you really should use a service account. So let's see. Yeah. So in the package infrastructure examples, they talk about, it looks like you can create a composite resource definition that potentially references a composition, or no, it defines a schema for a composition. And then a composition lets you put multiple things together, including more compositions, I'm guessing. And let's see. Oh, this is the composite PostgreSQL instance that we were using earlier. When I just said blah, it went on there. And presumably there's a for provider spec that says, oh, use dbt2 small, use this username, and a bunch of other stuff. And it's really nice to have those defaults. And sometimes you might want to override it because you're like, hey, T2 small isn't going to fit. Anything is going to take a long time to back up before it starts up. So you might want a bigger one just so that you're not spending like 15 minutes trying to get your development environment up to run 5 tests and then take them back down. Those patches from the claim to the composition. Oh, I was over here on compose infrastructure. So my spec has some parameters like storage gigs, 20 gigs. And over here in package infrastructure, I don't see where the storage gigs goes. Am I missing something? I'm sure I do. Oh, that's actually a good point. Let's see. So there's a storage gigs parameter here. We started with my Postgres database. Says it wants 20 gigs of storage. Let's track where that storage gigs goes. So this references the PostgreSQL instance. And we can see, again, it's got this storage gigs of 20. And it's got another resource reference. And it says, write the secret to this thing in Crossplane system. And presumably it's going to carry the secret from Crossplane system over to the public part. So this is kind of some internal stuff. Is this this composition is not a CRD. It's, I think they were calling it an XRD. Package infrastructure page. Ah, there's a patches section. So here's a base definition. And then it looks like you can copy like a UID from metadata UID to this value and add -PostgreSQL. And we saw over here that's copied, and then copy from storage GB to allocated storage in here. So it should be, if we do a kubectl get RDS instance, and we take this nice double set of generated names and we use describe. We should end up with, at the provider, okay, we've got an ARN. Oh, that's status. We want spec. So for the provider, allocated storage is 20. So it looks like I actually couldn't override the instance class without needing to update the composition to put a patch in there. And then abstract Postgres. So it looks like instance type. I'm also wondering how this works if I want to be able to say, hey, I'd like a database with 8 gigs of RAM. Which frankly, I don't know how I would do that by hand without going to all the documentation. So Google Cloud SQL, DB sizing, AWS, RDS, instance types, Azure, instance types. Well, I can't spell it, but Google knows what I'm spelling. So right here, I'm using a T2 small, which looks like I get 2 gigs of RAM. For Google Cloud SQL, I wanted the next one. Always look for the pricing pages. And wait, do they not have sizes here? Instance sizing. Here we go. It looks like G1 small would be slightly different, but close. And so that's probably what I'd pick as an equivalent. Let's business critical. I think interesting. What if I wanted the opposite of business critical, kicking the tires? It looks like the smallest amount of RAM I can get on Azure SQL might be 20 gigs. I have trouble believing that, but yeah, They want you to use it for real stuff. I guess I'm trying to figure out if I want RAM to be configurable and the underlying API doesn't let me specify how much RAM but wants me to tell it an instance size instead. I feel like I'd need to maintain a lookup table. Is there a way to do that? Realize we've kind of gotten off in the weeds, but this isn't Crossplane's fault. This is, hey, infrastructure providers. You make it really hard to actually ask for the resources you want. But it sounds like you can do a map transform in the patches. So maybe I want to figure out how to do that. Maybe it's under reference. So in order to figure this out, I'm probably actually going to do the bad thing and go read the Go package definitions, because that may be my fastest way to find it. Assuming you're building stuff in the normal. Oops. Okay, I don't know where the API definitions are here. Composition. Go. Ha! Here we go. And then I have patch sets. And a patch set here is a bunch of patch, and a patch is here. And patch type from to, and then a set of transforms. Ooh, you can do math, and you can do a map. What is a convert? Okay. I think you may be thinking the 1.1 docs. Introduction section. Okay, so that gives me an exact mapping, it looks like. The problem with RAM, I don't know if you noticed this over here, was like Google gives you like 1.7 and 3.75 here, and Amazon is giving you like 1 and 2 and 4. Because Google's taken out the hypervisor overhead from the VM size. Oh, sorry. Let me turn down my audio. Yeah, you could define something like small, medium, and large, and then work things that way. If people actually know what resources they need. It's not Crossplane's fault, but it's really hard to get them out of your cloud providers. But let's see if this actually... it's still backing up. Okay. So maybe a Postgres database wasn't the right... Oh, it looks like it is ready now. Kubectl get PostgreSQL instance. Ah, it's ready, and it's got a connection secret. Let's see. Okay, so now I've actually got one of these databases, and And now I've got a pretty standard, I've got a secret, and it's got an endpoint and a password and a port and a username. And so I can just inject those in as environment variables, or I can mount them or whatever. So yeah, Crossplane can't do magic that the cloud providers have made really hard, like give me a 2 gig database instance. But it does give you a nice abstraction here, where if, maybe for all my test instances, I'm using Azure, and then staging and production are on AWS. Or, I've got a whole bunch of credits, on this cluster. And I think the way that they've actually sort of layered things out, and this is a combination of the way Crossplane has structured stuff and the way that Kubernetes lets you dig into these resources, is kind of nice because you can actually see what's going on. And like if something breaks, it's not hidden in, like, you'll notice that I never actually ended up breaking open like a log viewer and trying to read the logs of the controller to figure out what was going on. It was all in the spec or in the status. And I bet it probably actually even works nicely with Octant. Let's see. So here we are, and we've got a Postgres instances. And I can click in here and get, I can get the YAML and stuff. But I can actually see what I've got in here that's interesting. And then, it works with all the other normal tools for figuring out the status of things. And it even gets a green checkbox, I think, because its stuff is provisioned. Oh, never mind. It doesn't. It probably should. But it does have a status over here that tells me that it's ready. And that's kind of nice. Yeah. I know Google... Well, actually, I don't know if you can, with Cloud SQL, if you can do custom sizes. But I'm guessing you can, because I think I saw vCPU and memory prices. I don't know if they charge a premium for that. But yeah, if it was important to you that you get exactly 5 gigs of RAM for your database, then Google lets you do that. And let's see. I think Daniel had to drop off. So Peter, if you're looking for a connection there, they're really friendly on the Crossplane Slack, so I'd suggest go over there. It's link right up here at the top. Or it sounds like Nick. But yeah, so we've configured one of these things. Oh, and they're using categories. This is a nice feature as well. If you're actually building infrastructure, you can give multiple names that show up on, for get and list. So you can say get claim, and it'll get you all the different types of things that are claims. And if you say get all, it'll actually show you all the different resources that I have that are tagged with all. It looks like claims aren't part of the all category. So if I say Crossplane system all, then I can see all the pods and deployments and replica sets that are there. It might be nice to have some of the pieces, maybe the claims, be part of all, so you can see, what do I have there? Kubectl get Crossplane. Looks like kubectl get Crossplane will tell me that for all the different Crossplane resources. Now, because Crossplane is heavily nested, these resource names get really long. And a lot of these are kind of linked together. Wait, are these all global? No. This is a provider config usage. And here's my RDS instance, and here's my provider config. And the other thing that's weird here is this doesn't tell me actually which ones of these are in my namespace and which ones are global resources. But that's a kubectl output issue. And so, yeah, this is how to use it. And then I should just be able to say control get claims, get claim. You may want to register claims too. Control get does that work? Oh, that's cool. You can say delete claim my DB and it'll figure out which types you have and delete them. So it looks like compositions and everything else are global. So one thing that's kind of powerful but also frustrating in Kubernetes is you kind of have to choose for each resource if it's going to be namespace level and something that you can manage if you're just in a namespace, or if it's going to be global and something that you can share across namespaces. And it'd be really nice if there was better support for having like both a provider config and a cluster provider config. So you could actually narrow it down and make sure that, okay, I've built my little kingdom in here and I'm not sharing it with someone else. But it sounds like the idea is that your cluster administrator would set up all of your compositions and so forth, and then you would just provision claims for it. So this isn't a complete, I wouldn't call it a complete app delivery platform necessarily, because you might want to be able to say, okay, this is my development environment, and 6 of us are iterating on this packaging, but we don't want to get SRE involved because, this is just a sandbox thing. But you could use Crossplane to configure the database for each one. And so you'd have a template of YAML files that everyone has a fork of, and then they'd apply their local fork. And people don't have to figure out, okay, let me figure out how to manage all the AWS keys and so forth. That can be kept off in a central location. Anything else people want me to look into in particular about Crossplane? We managed to get an AWS instance up, and I think maybe, let's see. And now it's deleting. I deleted the claim, and now it's getting cleaned up. So that's nice. Yeah, so claims for individual compositions can be done at the namespace level, but defining new compositions is a global operation. And let's see, package infrastructure. So we were looking at this. We'll look at the 1.1 stuff because that's coming out next week, I'm told. So looks like this is just saying to download this file, which is a configuration that describes this stuff with annotations and says it depends on another provider. So this is a provider that's already published, I'm guessing. And then you can build and push the configuration, and it will just pull in the existing AWS stuff. So it looks like you've kind of got a little bit of a dependency management process in terms of managing packages. And nice. So you can say, here's the controller that you should run, and these are the permissions it's going to need. So these API groups and these resources. And then it looks like you build kind of a normal controller. But yeah, it looks like Crossplane has built a package manager on their way to providing resources for clusters. So that may be a useful thing to you as well. If you're saying, gosh, like Knative has this problem where we need an HTTP ingress. We support 5. We don't want to package, we don't want to package Istio or Courier or Kong or something like that if you already have one in your cluster. But if you don't have any, then we're sort of like, go off and follow their instructions for installing. Or here's our instructions for installing, which are lagging a certain amount behind. So it's nice having a way to actually do these dependencies without needing to sort of copy things and or teach everyone. And yeah, we've been here an hour and a half. It looks like this is all standard, and Matt and Steve, I think it talked earlier about how this is all actually installed in a registry. And so you've got a pull policy and activation policy and revision history limit. Yeah, you can all read the documentation. I was just wondering whether you could abuse the Crossplane Package Manager to install something that didn't actually provide any further types, but was just a way to, for example, install Knative, which installs a bunch of system types and is its own controller. And so you wouldn't actually end up with a claim or a composition, but you would happen to pull in the operator controller and whatever else you needed. But yeah, it's cool that there's a package manager in there. And Nick's like, don't do that. We didn't plan for that one. But I feel like the history of a lot of this stuff is accidental discovery. So. Oh, Matt points out one other thing for exploring images. Explore.ggcr.dev image equals and I guess this lets you explore what's actually in the manifests kind of in a very raw form rather than in a cooked form. I was hoping for something that actually gave you like a UI browser where you could see like Midnight Commander style actually open down into the file contents for stuff like Crossplane. For Ubuntu, actually reading the text file for Bash is probably less interesting. Oh, Matt says if you click on the FS layer, that you can actually see that. I don't see where the FS layer is. Oh. If I click on this. Oh, cool. So explore gcr.dev will show me actually what's in the files, so I can actually read like what's in the etc password for Ubuntu. That's pretty handy. So thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun. I even got a SQL database out of it eventually. But more importantly, I got to see a lot of what Crossplane is doing and wrap my head a lot better around what it is and how it's supposed to be used. Because I was trying to fit it into the application packaging bundle. And it's really an infrastructure management bundle, which is really handy when you're going across multiple clouds. Yeah. Okay. My bill is back to 0. So it was great. See you all probably. Well, I don't know if I'll see you next week, but there'll be another TGIK next week. And hope everyone stays safe and healthy between now and then. Release some cool software.